Hello, my name is Lo, and I'm currently in need of a change. I'm in lockdown right now, which honestly would be enough to drive anyone crazy, and has. I've seen plenty of people dyeing their hair and shaving their head compilations, and I am also experiencing that same urge. And that urge only got more intense after I found out that Bernie Sanders was suspending his campaign. And now I'm very sad, and I'm gonna dye my hair purple. Because that's how we deal with negative emotions during quarantine. So, oh, this is actually really good because I get to see like the back of my head in the mirror. Alright, so I can make sure that I have like full coverage or whatever. I've dyed my hair several times, but I'm not very good at like technique. I typically just kind of glop all of the dye on, so this time I'm gonna try to do it a little more correctly, as the kids say. I got this Manic Panic Purple Haze, which is what I'm gonna be using just over my hair. I'm not bleaching it or anything. You can probably tell like the ends are significantly lighter than the roots. And that's not because I've ever bleached it, but I used permanent dyes that I guess had like ammonia in them. Anyway, I don't have gloves, so we're just gonna get messy, and that's just how this is gonna go. And while I'm doing this, I'm gonna talk about Bernie Sanders because he matters a lot to me. And even though he suspended his campaign, I think there's still a lot to say about him as a candidate and the movement that he started. God damn it, I can't open this thing. There we go. Good idea, Lo. Thanks, Lo. I'm fucking talking to myself. This is what quarantine does to us. Well, wait, is it considered talking to myself if I have a camera? Is this my loophole? And so I happen to have a shopping bag that already had a hole in it, so I don't even feel bad about wasting. And this is my genius strategy to keep my clothes clean that I've been using since college. So, nice. Okay, let's get started. So, if somehow you don't know, Bernie Sanders is a senator in the US who ran for president first in 2016 and lost in the primary against Hillary Clinton, who then proceeded to lose against Donald Trump. And then Bernie ran for president again in 2020. Both times he ran on pretty much like the same freaking platform. In fact, he has been doing everything on like pretty much the same freaking platform for several decades since he got involved in politics in I think the 70s. His big points have always been just standing up for like the little guy in whatever way is necessary. Also, I'm not doing my roots right now because my jar of dye is fairly small, and I figured I'm gonna start on the mids and ends because those are also the lightest parts and more likely to actually pick up the dye. It makes sense in my brain. I don't know if it's actually a good strategy, but whatever. Yeah, I thought I was gonna do this in chunks, but I'm probably gonna just get bored and start glopping like I normally do. But yeah, so Bernie ran in 2016, and that's when I found out about him, like most people. Before that, he was just like a random senator from Vermont, so like not a ton of people were super aware of who who he was and what his policies were. And I remember seeing a Tumblr post where somebody said, I know everyone thinks you have to vote for Hillary, but there's actually another option. It's this guy named Bernie Sanders, and he has all of these policies that you probably agree with because you're a piece of shit SJW on Tumblr. And I was like, damn, yeah, I connect with that. This is my guy. When he started his campaign in 2016, again, very few people knew who he was. He was not getting a lot of media coverage, and he was calling himself a democratic socialist. He wasn't shying away from that label. So of course, he was seen as like the fringe candidate, like absolutely crazy, who would vote for him. And then he shocked everyone by actually getting a pretty substantial follower base. And he became the main opposition to Hillary Clinton, and a lot of people voted for him, but not enough, and he lost the nomination. But still, he had started what he called the political revolution, and he had gotten a lot of people excited about politics, especially young people. Well, then in 2020, he ended up running again, and at one point was actually the Democratic frontrunner, which was spectacular and unexpected and just absolutely amazing. This person who's been called a democratic socialist, who does not get any like media support, who is running a campaign 100% funded by grassroots donors, this guy is the frontrunner? Nobody really expected that, because that's not how politics happened. Of course, once people had found out that Bernie was actually a viable candidate, the media attacks on him got a lot worse and a lot more apparent. Let's dig up some dirt on him from like 1970, which he doesn't even have dirt from 1970. This guy is, I think, the best that we can come to just a decent human being, much less a decent politician. So they started making up dirt on him. No honesty, no concern for the actual well-being of the country and the people. Just who is funding me and how can I make sure that things go as good for those funders as possible. So once coronavirus hit, Bernie did the honorable thing, of course, and focused all of his efforts on relief. And now he has suspended his presidential campaign. Oh, and I didn't even talk about how the entire Democratic Party essentially just banded together to stop him. In the days before Super Tuesday, every candidate in the Democratic Party, almost, dropped out to endorse a candidate who was not the front runner. Clearly a targeted attack on Bernie. Like, they're not even trying to hide it at this point. They just want him to lose. Well, they got what they wanted, and Bernie just suspended his campaign. So because he has suspended his campaign, it means that he's no longer going to spend money or anything on his campaign itself, but he's still going to be on the ballot in states that haven't had their primary yet. So if you live in a state that hasn't voted in the primary yet, you still can vote for Bernie, but I guess people are saying that the only like real benefit that that would have is to, I guess, pressure the establishment to move further left, which, let's be honest, is not going to happen. Like, the establishment has no interest in moving further left. They have no interest in listening to the progressive platform or compromising with progressives, as evidenced by the fact that they all dropped out to endorse Joe, who is the least progressive. So, I mean, yeah, still vote for Bernie in your primary. Like, nothing bad can happen out of voting for Bernie in the primary. But, I don't know. I guess it's difficult to feel like those votes matter. It's difficult to feel like our votes matter at all when it's so clearly run by this one organization that already knew from the get-go who they wanted to be the Democratic candidate. They knew that they wanted Joe. They had no interest in seeing what the American people wanted. And that's why they suppressed votes. That's why they continued to have primaries in the middle of a fucking pandemic. Yeah, you can see I'm just starting to glop at this point. I don't even care. When I dye my hair, I don't typically super care about evenness. Maybe you can tell that that's not one of my priorities. But yeah, when I saw that notification saying that he was suspending his campaign, of course, I was incredibly upset. Of course, like, this is the only guy who I felt actually had my best interests at heart. This is the only guy I felt who actually was honest and had good morals in politics. Like, and now we're stuck in a race between Joe Biden and Trump, two people who have been accused of sexual harassment or sexual assault, and I don't want to have to pick my favorite rapist in November. That doesn't get me excited. And I know before this, I was saying, you know what, like, yeah, I support Bernie, but when it comes down to it, I'll vote blue no matter who in November, because what really matters is getting Trump out. But recently, I'm not sure that I want to do that. I'm not sure where I stand anymore. And I want to be clear that I'm not saying you shouldn't vote for Biden. I'm not saying you shouldn't vote. I'm not saying you should vote. I'm not saying anything about shoulds. I'm saying that I'm conflicted and I haven't decided yet what I'm going to do. That being said, I'm not sure that I want to still vote for the candidate in the party that has so blatantly and aggressively told me that they don't give a shit about me or my thoughts or who I want to be president. Like, I don't know that I want to continue supporting that. I don't like the DNC. I don't like Joe Biden. And I don't want to vote for him because, oh, well, he raped fewer people, so he's better than Trump. Or like whatever dumb shit liberals are saying these days. I saw a tweet that was like, let's assume that Biden and Trump are both rapists. Well, shouldn't you vote for the rapist with the better policies? That's where we're at in America. Vote for the rapist with the slightly better policies. That's really how low we've sunk. And it sucks because in a two-party system, you don't really get many options. But I have been reading a lot about the Green Party and how if the Green Party gets 5% of votes in November, they will be eligible for federal funding. So no, I mean, I don't think it's as simple as a lot of people are making it out to be, where it's like, well, if you don't support children in cages, then you need to vote for Biden. I've seen a lot of people saying to just do what you gotta do in order to make the least bad outcome. And then people saying like the only reason why you would vote for a third party is because you just want your own conscience to be clear. But it's not quite that simple. There is a tangible positive outcome to voting third party and getting to the point where that third party can now be seen as a viable option in the future. Plus, I mean, I've had this conversation with some of my friends who still live in Tennessee. They already live in a red state, barring some like really crazy circumstances, which honestly, like, we're living in really crazy circumstances, so maybe. But Tennessee is almost definitely gonna go to Trump. So what is a vote for Biden gonna do in Tennessee versus a vote for Green Party? could actually have some significant outcome. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, obviously it depends on where you are, your state, and like what happens from now until November. I don't know, dude. It's just the amount of distrust and dissatisfaction I feel with the American political system right now. Like, I don't want to vote for somebody who belongs to a party that doesn't care about me and is manipulating me into voting for a bad candidate. You know, like I don't want to play into that game. But at the same time, I don't want to end up contributing to a second term for Trump out of a desire to punish the DNC. Like, there's no winning at this point, and that is very, very disheartening and honestly makes me not want to live in America anymore. Like, I'm currently in Australia, and things here are not fantastic by any means, but like, at least in Australia, when they had gun violence, they passed gun legislation. At least in Australia, they actually have universal health care. If you are or your family member is sick, you can get the care you need without going bankrupt. To other people in other countries, I guess that's just like normal. But to us in America, apparently we still have to fight tooth and nail, and we're not even gonna get it. We can be in the middle of a pandemic where people are losing their jobs and therefore losing their health care, and still the only person who is vocally saying that we need to have universal health care doesn't have enough support to win an election. How is that possible? What kind of backwards world are we living in where we allow people to die from a pandemic and allow people to go into poverty because of a pandemic because they can't afford to take off work or get health care? It's very scary. We are dealing with so many crises every single day, whether it's global warming or a pandemic or the widening gap between the rich and the poor in America. We had a candidate who actually gave us some amount of hope for some amount of time, and the DNC crushed him. I don't know. Very disheartening, very upsetting. There's no winning right now. There's no good solution. So I guess the only thing you can really do is just dye your hair purple. I will be back in approximately 30 minutes-ish to wash this out. Alright, it's about an hour later and I'm back. I know you're only technically supposed to like leave it in for about half an hour, but it's not permanent dye, so leaving it in longer can't hurt, and I got carried away on my puzzle, and also, I don't know, I always feel better leaving it in longer because for some reason, I don't know if it's true or not, but I feel in my heart like the longer you let it stay in, the longer it'll last, or like the more intense it'll be. I don't know if that's true at all or if that's just my own bad assumptions, but anyway, yeah, I just take the bag and wrap it up so none of the hair gets anywhere. But while I was doing my puzzle, I was thinking more about Bernie, obviously, and I guess a lot of what I was saying before was a lot of just kind of sad, upset reaction, which is understandable, I think. I don't know. I mean, it sucks. It really, truly just absolutely sucks. Wow, my hands are so purple. But looking into the future, Bernie did have a huge impact on politics. And like, you look at some of the people who were supporting him this year, like Ilhan Omar and AOC, these people have talked about how they were inspired to run for office because of Bernie Sanders, because he made people feel like they mattered. And that kind of impact is absolutely incredible. And that kind of impact is going to last so much longer than his campaign itself. And that's what he's been saying this entire time. Not me, us. It's not about him as a person. It's about the ideas that he stands for and the things that he's fighting for And I think he has brought enough attention to all of those issues, and he's done so much that even though he isn't going to be our president, I think he has mobilized such a huge base of people who now understand, like, it's okay to ask for more. I can ask for universal health care. I can ask for free college. It might not happen, but at least now it's like in the discussion. And I guess that's what the whole movement has always been about from the get-go. It's not about any one particular policy change or any one particular politician. It's about creating a culture of care and creating an American environment where we are willing to stand up for each other. And that's the culture that he has helped create. And that is going to continue. All I can really say is thank you to Bernie Sanders for giving us hope and for representing us and for making us feel like we are worth something. Thank you for listening to us. Thank you for wanting the best for all of us. And I guess now we just gotta keep fighting. Join an organization, join a union if you can. Talk to your friends and family about these issues and bring it up in ways that don't make them seem so radical. I mean, honestly, I love Bernie Sanders, but his ideas really aren't even that radical. The radical thing would be to take to the streets and demand these things, to strike, to do all of these other kinds of direct action. Bernie Sanders was the compromise candidate. He was the person saying, okay, let's try to work within the system to reform. We can't be looking at him as the far left radical that he's been painted by the media as. We have to look at Bernie's policy proposals as completely reasonable and honestly ridiculous that they haven't already been implemented in the United States. And we need to talk about them that way and say to our friends and family when we're talking to them, hey, this is not a crazy idea. This is the norm in other places. And we need to be playing catch up. I think even though Bernie didn't win, and that sucks, the lasting impact he has had on American politics is going to keep propelling us. And I think, not to be corny, but even though the me wasn't successful this time, I think the us is going to be successful in the long term. So yeah, I mean, the fight's not over even though Bernie's campaign is. And keep the spirit alive, and I'm gonna go wash out my hair. Alright, so I just washed the dye out of my hair and put leave-in conditioner in it, which I'm gonna leave for a couple minutes and then wash out. That's just typically when I dye my hair, I like to do another layer of conditioner. That wasn't the right word, but you get what I mean. Alright, my hair is dried, brushed, very deeply conditioned, and here is the final outcome. It looks more red on video than in real life, but I guess this is approximately the final outcome then. It's a bit splotchy, as I probably could have predicted based on the fact that I was just taking goops of dye and putting it in my hair, but yeah, I don't hate it. I actually think it's pretty nice. It's not my favorite outcome of dyeing my hair purple, but it's also not my least favorite. So I'm happy with it. I'm happy with my hair, and I'm not happy with the Democratic primary outcomes. So remember to still vote, even if you don't feel like you want to vote for Biden in the presidential election. remember to still vote down the ballot for every progressive you can find, every progressive you can vote for, because those are the elections that are going to affect policies on a local and state level, and those are so incredibly important because those politicians actually get a lot of stuff done on the ground and you want them to be on your side. So yeah, dye your hair and vote progressive in any election you can. All right, I think that's it for this video. Bye.